Welcome back to Sleepy Crime. Lay your phone to the side and enjoy tonight's story. Don't forget to subscribe for nightly true crime stories. Let's begin. The Library Case. Part 1, The Whispering Isles. In the sleepy town of Linwood Hollow, where fog lingered on the cobbled streets until mid-morning and old trees creaked even when there was no wind, there stood a library older than anyone could remember. The Linwood Public Library was a Gothic revival structure of dark stone, its arched windows hiding rows of forgotten tomes and quiet secrets. Every evening, a soft chime would echo through the reading hall at 6 p.m., signaling closing time. But one librarian, Ms. Eleanor Reed, stayed behind most nights. She said it was for organizing, cataloging, and preparing for school groups. But everyone in town knew she simply loved the stillness of it, the quiet rustle of paper, the occasional flicker of light, and the sound of the building breathing beneath her feet. One Monday in late October, Eleanor noticed something strange. A book had been returned, The Woods Beyond the Veil, yet she couldn't recall anyone checking it out. Its due date stamp read 1987, though the current year was 2025. Odd, but not impossible. Mistakes happened. She set it aside and made a note to check the card catalog. That night, as the last patron left, Eleanor heard the faintest sound, a whisper. Not the building settling. Not the wind. A voice. Low, mumbling, as if someone was reading aloud from a page they couldn't quite understand. She turned off her lamp, the green glass shade casting a shadow on the oak desk. She stood, listened, and followed the sound through the aisles, past reference books with cracked spines, past the dusty microfiche drawers, all the way to the local history section, tucked behind a stained glass partition. There, the whisper stopped. And lying open on the floor was The Woods Beyond the Veil, pages fluttering, as if caught in a breeze that wasn't there. Eleanor picked it up slowly, and as her fingers touched the cover, the lights in that section dimmed, not off, just softer, as though the library had blinked. The next morning, the book was gone again. No one had entered. The door logs were untouched. Eleanor hadn't moved it. But when she checked the system, the checkout record had been updated. Borrower, unknown. Due, October 1987. She blinked. Checked again. The screen now said, due, November 2025. With a new borrower ID. The name? E. Reed. Part 2, The Return Slot. That night, Eleanor made a pot of chamomile tea and sat in her small upstairs apartment, which overlooked the library's west wing. She stared at the glow of her laptop screen, where the record still showed her name as the current borrower of The Woods Beyond the Veil. But she hadn't checked it out. She never had. In fact, she hadn't even seen that book before yesterday. The thought it might be some prank didn't hold water. No one came to Linwood Hollow to play pranks, and certainly not on Eleanor, who was known for her quiet dignity and her firm control of the library's inner workings. She marked the date, October 13th. She'd check the return logs every night from now on. The next morning, she opened the library as usual. The first few hours passed uneventfully. A handful of students came in to study, and Mr. Halifax, the retired literature teacher, returned his usual stack of 19th-century novels. But around noon, something new occurred. The book return slot, a heavy brass flap near the front desk, clanged softly. Eleanor turned in time to see The Woods Beyond the Veil slide through, spine first. She hurried to the desk and lifted the book. It was cold to the touch. Inside, tucked between pages 118 and 119, was a slip of yellowing paper that hadn't been there the day before. It looked like a checkout card from the 1980s. Stamped in faded ink were the names of several past borrowers. She recognized none of them, until the last name. Thomas Merrow, October 31st, 1987. The name rang a bell. Faint, but there. She walked to the back archives and unlocked the door with her key. The archives were rarely touched. Most townspeople had no reason to dig into Linwood's past. Eleanor ran her finger along the spines until she found the bound volumes of the Linwood Gazette. She pulled down the one labeled October, December, 1987 and flipped to Halloween. There it was. The article. Local boy missing. Thomas Merrow, age 17, failed to return home after visiting the Linwood Public Library. Last seen near the West Wing around 5:45 p.m. No signs of struggle. No witnesses. Case remains open. Eleanor stared at the photo. The boy had tousled dark hair, a nervous smile, and wore a thick wool coat. In the background of the photo, blurred, barely noticeable, was the unmistakable stained glass window of the local history section. The same spot where the book had reappeared. Her tea had long gone cold. Part 3, The Card Catalog. That evening, Eleanor locked the front doors precisely at 6. The chime echoed through the high-arched halls like a gentle sigh. She turned the lights down, leaving only the soft amber glow of the reading lamps on. She didn't go home. Instead, she brewed a fresh cup of tea and carried it with her to the old card catalog drawers tucked into a quiet alcove near the back. Most librarians had long abandoned the card system, but Eleanor kept it in perfect condition, filed, dusted, and alphabetized. The scent of ink and polished wood lingered like memory. She found the drawer labeled FH, pulled it open, and searched until her fingers brushed a card labeled Merrow, Thomas, The Woods Beyond the Veil. Checkout date, October 31st, 87. Return due, November 7th, 87. Condition, worn spine, faint pencil markings. Returned via slot. Returned. That wasn't in the article. According to the police report, Thomas had vanished and never been seen again. No one ever mentioned the book being returned. Eleanor removed the card, turning it over. On the back, written in pencil so faint it nearly vanished into the paper, was a message. I tried to leave it behind. She stared at it, her breath catching. The handwriting was clumsy, as if written in the dark. The West Wing groaned. Not loudly. Just a creak. She stood slowly, holding the card, and made her way toward the local history section. The floorboards creaked under her sensible shoes. A wind whispered through the book aisles though no windows were open. At the very back, The Woods Beyond the Veil sat once again, this time upright on the shelf, slotted neatly between two unrelated volumes. Eleanor hadn't put it there. She stepped closer. The lights above dimmed. The stained glass window glowed faintly, though the sun had long since set. A strange warmth radiated from the glass as if it remembered light. She pulled the book from the shelf. Its pages rustled, and something dropped from between them. A photograph. Black and white. It showed a young man, not Thomas, but older. 40s, maybe. Standing in the local history section. Looking directly into the camera. He was holding the book. On the back, written in the same faint pencil. He never left. Not really. Eleanor clutched the photo and closed the book. She turned quickly, the lights flickering above her. The library had gone quiet. Still. As if it were listening. Part 4, The Man in the Archives. Eleanor didn't sleep that night. She sat in the worn armchair near her apartment window, staring at the dark outline of the library below. The photograph lay on her lap. She examined it again and again, eyes tracing every blurred detail of the background, the books, the lamp, the stained glass. The timestamp in the corner read, April 12, 2005. That wasn't the year Thomas Merrow had vanished. It was nearly 2 decades later. Yet the man in the photo was holding the same book, and behind his forced smile, his eyes looked afraid. The next morning, Eleanor opened the library like always, but only half-heartedly. Her eyes flicked toward the west wing every time the wind shifted or a door creaked. She waited until noon, then slipped away into the archives. The municipal records for Linwood Hollow were stored in the basement: blueprints, town council minutes, and decades of employee records. She found the folder for the year 2005. There it was. New hire, Malcolm Lane. Position, Historical Records Archivist. Start date, March 2005. End date, May 2005. Just 2 months. She dug deeper. Malcolm Lane had never officially resigned. According to the notes, he'd stopped coming to work one day in late April. His apartment was empty, no signs of struggle. The only thing missing: the woods beyond the veil. Her heart slowed. She flipped back to the photo. The date: April 12th. He had vanished only weeks later. Back in the reading room, the afternoon sun filtered through the tall windows. Shadows stretched long across the patterned rug. She had to find out more. That evening, long after the library had closed, Eleanor descended once more into the archives, this time carrying a flashlight and a notebook. She passed the filing cabinets and map drawers, deeper into the lower level where the oldest, least touched records were kept. The air was thick. Dust motes floated in her beam of light. She turned a corner and stopped. There was someone standing at the far end of the row. A man. Tall. Motionless. His coat looked old-fashioned, thick wool-like in the photo. He said nothing. "Malcolm?" Eleanor asked, barely above a whisper. No response. She stepped forward, the flashlight beam trembling slightly. The man took a single step backward, into the shadows, and vanished from sight. Eleanor ran forward. Nothing. Just rows of shelves and crumbling paper. But on the floor, resting atop an open archive drawer, was a checkout card. Not one she had seen before. Name: Eleanor Reed. Book: The Woods Beyond the Veil. Checkout date: August 6, 2025. Due: TBD. Condition: marked. Watching. She stood frozen in the stillness. The flashlight flickered. Far above, somewhere in the quiet halls of the library, a page turned. Part 5, The Hidden Chapter. Eleanor didn't speak the next morning, not to the mailman, not to Mrs. Claremont who came in to renew her gardening magazines, not even to the 2 high schoolers whispering about some online ghost story they'd read. Her mind was 1,000 feet underground, back in that archive drawer. The checkout card listing her own name hadn't been there before. She was certain of it. She'd inspected those drawers dozens of times. She would have noticed. The note on it, marked "Watching," kept echoing in her mind like the creaking hinges of the West Wing doors. By 5:30 that evening, the library was empty. The lights dimmed automatically as the sun lowered behind the hills. Eleanor stood in the local history section again, her fingers wrapped around the woods beyond the veil, now pulled from the shelf for the 3rd time in as many days. This time, she decided to read it. The book was oddly written, stiff prose, strange pacing. The story followed a man named Thomas who discovered a forest beyond his town that didn't appear on any map. The trees whispered secrets. Time slowed there. And once someone entered, they could not leave unless they left something of themselves behind. But what chilled her most was that around halfway through the book, the tone changed completely. The narrator stopped referring to Thomas in the 3rd person. He started saying, "I." Then, the name Eleanor appeared. She stared at the line. "I saw Eleanor again today." She walked past the archives, unaware. "I tried to leave the book where she'd find it." The book trembled slightly in her hands. She flipped ahead. Most pages were empty, just blank sheets, clean as untouched snow. But the final 5 pages, they were filled with tiny handwriting. Jagged. Scrawled like someone was writing in the dark, fast. Each entry was dated. April 14, 2005. Tried the front door. Still locked. Lights don't respond anymore. I think the building breathes. April 16, 2005. Heard someone upstairs. A woman. I called out. She didn't hear me. I think I'm out of sync. April 21, 2005. If someone finds this, don't check out the book. Don't hold it too long. It pulls. It knows your name. April 24, 2005. I don't know where the library ends anymore. The aisles repeat. I see versions of myself I don't recognize. April 30, 2005. She's the next one. Eleanor. She's already marked. The book won't let go. Eleanor slammed the book shut, chest tight. The reading lamp beside her flickered. From somewhere, deep in the building, she heard a soft voice. Don't be afraid. She spun around. No one. But when she looked down, the woods beyond the veil was open again. And the words were changing, right before her eyes. Chapter 17, The Librarian. She thought she was safe within the walls of the library, but stories don't end just because the book closes. Her flashlight rolled off the table and hit the floor with a thud. And the door behind her creaked open, on its own. Part 6, The Stack Between Worlds. Eleanor turned slowly, heart pounding loud in the hush of the West Wing. The heavy wooden door behind her, the one that had never opened unless pushed with force, now stood ajar, just enough to show the narrow gap of darkness beyond it. That door led nowhere. It was a relic, once the entrance to a long-gone wing sealed off after a small fire in the 1950s. No one used it. But something had opened it now. Clutching the woods beyond the veil tightly against her chest, Eleanor stepped forward. The air was cooler in the doorway, as if it led not to a room but to a cellar or a cave. She pushed the door fully open. Instead of the forgotten old wing she expected, she found a hallway. Narrow, dim, but lined with shelves. Tall and warped, stacked high with books whose spines had no titles. Some were crumbling. Others pulsed faintly, like the glow of coals under ash. Eleanor's breath caught in her throat. The hallway felt longer than it should have been. Deeper. As though space had curled inward. She took a step. The door behind her creaked again. She turned, slowly, and saw that the library reading room was now distant, far too distant. As though she'd stepped 100 feet away rather than a dozen. She tried to go back. But with every step forward toward the exit, the shelves seemed to shift. Rearranging silently. The library wasn't letting her out. She turned back again. There, further down the passage, was a figure. Sitting. It was a man, slouched, leaning against the bottom of a shelf. A lantern flickered beside him. Her voice came out hoarse. Hello. The man stirred slowly, like someone waking from a long nap. His eyes opened halfway. She recognized the face. From the photograph. Malcolm Lane. He nodded, barely. His voice was dry, cracked. You shouldn't be here. I know, she whispered. But I think I've been here, for a long time. Haven't I? He blinked. Looked at the book in her hands. You opened it? Yes. Then it's already started. She crouched beside him. What is this place? The library beneath the library, he murmured. It remembers everything that was never written down. She didn't understand. I don't want to stay. He reached into his coat pocket, pulling out a card, a library card, faded and cracked. You still have a chance. Tear out the chapter with your name. Tear it out, and burn it. Her fingers trembled. And if I don't? He looked up at her, eyes hollow but kind. Then it'll finish writing you. A soft wind moved through the strange passage, and somewhere, a page turned on its own. Behind her, the shelves began to hum. Part 7, the chapter that changed. The humming grew louder, gentle but steady, like wind passing through 1,000 pages at once. Eleanor held the book tighter, rising slowly to her feet. The passageway behind her rippled slightly, like heat rising off asphalt, but colder, more deliberate. "Burn the chapter?" she asked. "Won't that ruin the book?" Malcolm leaned his head back against the shelf and gave a hollow chuckle. "That's the idea." Eleanor opened The Woods Beyond the Veil again. The chapters had rearranged themselves. She flipped past 12, 13, 14. Chapter 17, The Librarian. There it was again. But this time, the first sentence had changed. Eleanor walked deeper into the stacks, guided not by fear but by memory. Her hands shook. The words were tracking her movements, writing her decisions in real time. She turned to Malcolm. "How do I burn it?" "There's no fireplace. No matches." He gestured weakly to the lantern at his side. "It's enough." Eleanor knelt beside him, opened the book to chapter 17, and tore the page free. It didn't resist her. It came out smooth and silent, as if the book had been waiting. She held the page above the lantern's blue flame. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the paper caught fire, not with smoke, but with a silvery glow. The flame moved slowly, calmly, consuming the words in a way that seemed more like erasure than burning. Malcolm's breathing steadied. His shoulders relaxed. "Does that mean I'm safe?" she whispered. But he didn't answer. Because Malcolm was fading. Not in a dramatic puff of smoke, not with any fanfare. Just, dissolving. His form flickered like a candle down to its final ember. He looked at her one last time. "You closed the chapter." And then he was gone. Eleanor stood alone in the aisle. The humming had stopped. The passage behind her looked clearer now, the shelves no longer shifting. The warm amber glow of the library beyond returned, inviting. She walked back through the doorway, and this time, it led exactly where it should, to the reading room. She turned back. The mysterious hall was gone. The door sealed shut behind her with a final click. On the desk where she'd first read the book, The Woods Beyond the Veil sat closed. She picked it up. The cover was blank. No title. No markings. She opened it. All pages were empty. Completely. As if it had never been written at all. As if the story had ended. And maybe it had. Eleanor placed the book in the return slot, gently. Then, for the first time in 3 days, she walked home. She slept soundly that night. The next morning, the book was gone. The system showed no record of it ever existing. No checkout card, no catalog entry. And Malcolm Lane's employee file was gone too. Not erased. Just, as if it had never been there in the first place. The only thing that remained was a single pencil note inside Eleanor's day planner. She didn't remember writing it. It read, "Some stories aren't meant to be remembered. Just survived." Part 8, the final footnote. Weeks passed. Autumn deepened. The maples outside the Linwood Public Library turned gold, then red, then bare. Eleanor returned to her routines, cataloging, reshelving, repairing worn bindings. The strange events of October drifted like fog in her mind. Not gone, exactly. But softened. And yet, now and then. A whisper in the aisles. A flicker of motion beyond the stained glass. The feeling that a certain book had moved just slightly from where she placed it. She didn't investigate anymore. She didn't need to. Then one Wednesday morning, a package arrived. No return address. No postage. Just her name written in looping ink. Miss Eleanor Reed. Inside, a single envelope, a note card, and a key. The card read, "If you are reading this, then the library still remembers." The key opens a cabinet in the sub-basement, row 9B. Use it only if the book returns. Eleanor stared at the key for a long time. Brass. Heavy. Cold. She placed it in a drawer, locked it, and walked away. Days turned into weeks. Linwood's first snow came early that year. The children of the town whispered that the west wing of the library was haunted. That if you stood near the archives at exactly 6 p.m., you could hear someone flipping pages from behind a locked door. Eleanor let them whisper. She no longer feared the story. She had finished it. But one evening, as she was closing up, Eleanor passed by the return slot, and heard it. That soft, metallic clunk. She turned. A book had landed on the tray. Old. Familiar. The Woods Beyond the Veil. It was back. She stared at it, heart steady, hand still. And this time, she didn't pick it up. Instead, she walked downstairs. Found the cabinet marked 9B. Used the brass key. And opened it. Inside was something she had never seen before. Another book. Thicker. Untitled. Bound in cracked leather. And on the first page, in careful handwriting, "Stories That Won't Stay Gone." Compiled by Malcolm Lane. Volume 1. Eleanor closed the door behind her, pulled up a chair, and began to read.